Now, as Transformer fans, sometimes we always try to find that next big piece in our collection that we could be proud of, that could kind of be our most valuable, or our centerpiece, or our holy grail. And that could be a large Transformer figure, a rare Transformer figure, an animation cell, a prototype. There's always all kinds of little stuff we all kind of try to pursue and get. The next level of that, in a lot of ways, has always been also to try to own an actual car that one of our favorite characters are based on. And that's always been kind of exceedingly difficult, because by the time really Generation 1 reached that nostalgic hype in the late 90s, early 2000s, and even of that when the Michael Bay movies started to hit, a lot of those cars were just very difficult to find in any condition, most of them from the late 70s, early 80s. I mean, find a clean Datsun from 1979 is pretty difficult. It's out there, but it would be pretty difficult, and it would cost you quite a bit. And it gets to a point that usually isn't the pursuit of a lot of Transformer fans. They're just more happy to drive their Honda Civic and own a whole bunch of figures instead. Now, granted, when the Michael Bay movies came out, it became a lot easier, because a lot of the designs and the cars that were featured on the big screen were that of stuff that would show up in dealerships not too long after that. The best example being, and I know two people personally in the fandom that went out of the way to pick up versions of the Bumblebee Camaro. And the Bumblebee Camaro, known as the 2010 release, and then, of course, all the modifications and variations afterwards from multiple movies, those were a popular purchase for a lot of people, just because of, something that appeared in a movie. But what about owning the actual ones that have appeared in the movie? Now, the 4 different Bumblebee, stunt cars that appeared in the Transformer movies, there was 4 apparently in total, outside of the ones that would get smashed and stuff. Apparently those 4, over the past couple of years through the Barnett Jackson auction house, sold for over $500,000. And that's Bumblebee based off of a newer kind of design. We're not talking the Volkswagen, we're talking those Camaros. And really, at the end of the day, what really says that yours is the one from the movie, outside of some papers, compared to all the other ones on the road that probably have a lot less mileage if bought from a dealership? Now, here's some good news for you today. Would you like to own the Optimus Prime truck that was used at the end of the Bumblebee movie? To own, in a lot of ways, a close as you could G1 Optimus Prime facsimile? Well, you got some good news here today. So, from the Trucker Buy and Sell Trade or Advice Facebook group, the owner of the truck that was featured in the Bumblebee movie is deciding to finally get rid of it. Apparently, he was a truck driver. He's been using it as a daily for his own job all these years, and he's finally decided to part with it. Now, he's asking $21,000, which is, considering it comes with the trailer and everything, it seems pretty reasonable. But keep in mind, this is a 1987 Freightliner Marmon COE truck. Now, for people who aren't familiar with COE, that's the cab-over engine trucks. Now, I guess this is going to give me an excuse, because for people who are unaware, like Proto Man here on the podcast, he's a mechanic. So, there's a lot of, reasons why we don't see the flat nose Optimus Prime kind of thing anymore, and why we don't really see them on the road anymore outside of overseas. So cab-over engine trucks, they're popular. They have a nostalgic look to them, but they're not really good in this day and age. Number one, you're pretty much sitting on the front axle, and I've talked to a lot of, truck drivers through the years as a mechanic, and the ones that are that were using those in the 80s and now they're in their 60s or 70s today, they say they have terrible backs as a result of it, because you felt every single bump because you were sitting on that front axle, as opposed to, look, your car, you don't sit on the front axle, it's way ahead of you. Combined with the fact that those trucks too, on top of that, getting out of them was a feat in itself. And if you're someone over 40 or 50 years old, you're just not young enough to be jumping out of a truck that's that high off the ground and swinging out and everything like that. On top of that, the engine itself, because it's a Cabover engine, was contained in something that's called a doghouse. That's the term that we use anyhow. And because of that, it's kind of next to you and it's extremely loud. So it's, they're not that great. And then when the argument goes like, well, you still see them in Japan and everything like that. Well, the primary reason why you still see them in Japan, and this is the reason why you also don't see them here, is weather. Because the windshield is right up there, like it's you, the windshield, and the road, and there's no hood in front of you. Because you don't have a hood in front of you, every piece of weather hits you, whether it be snow, whether it be heavy rain, whether it be rocks. Everything is directly to you, and you'd be surprised how different the aerodynamics are of any vehicle, let alone a truck, is when you have a hood in front of you instead. And when you're talking about going down a highway where you could do sometimes as much as 100, everything that hits you is going to hit you at full speed. Where again, Japan just doesn't have the weather that's varied like that of North America or even that of the United States. Let's not even talk about where I come from in Canada with the crazy winter. The United States, the weather's all over the place depending where you are. So it's a big factor there. And another big factor, too, is accidents. Accidents, it's like when you hit something with those Cabovers, it's you and whatever. Front end, that's it. You're going to go through that windshield because you're right at that windshield. And because there's no hood, essentially, too, there's no crumple zone. Sounds like a Transformer name because it is. But what a crumple zone is it's pretty much what your hood is, because when you hit something, your entire hood and the front end of your car, it crumples and it takes all that kinetic energy and absorbs it, and it doesn't go into the driver. Yeah, you're still going to lunge forward when you get into a front end collision with your car and stuff, but it'd be a lot worse if you didn't have your hood there. You could almost die in a lot of ways from that. So, sorry to go on a bit of a downer, but that's the primary reason why you don't really see these flat noses anymore. And so this is a 1987 Marmon Cabover. And again, the guy, he says here, it's a 9-speed. He says the steering wheel is pretty good. Everything's pretty good. Visor is still good. American Eagle bumper. He says he has zero clue what the actual total mileage is, which is kind of silly that someone probably rolled back the OD. I don't know, especially at an 87. That is a possibility. He says he's put 85K on it, but he doesn't have any paperwork to prove that. But he's used it as a daily for himself. He says he put a new front rear end, new air compressor. And then, of course, he talks about how the truck was featured at the end of the Bumblebee movie. And he has CODs to show that, too. He says that it does need a lot of work, though. It was stored in winter. So, it was stored and used in winter. So there is stuff that might be a little worn out. So it says new driver's side door needed, some fenders, lower sections of the grille. He was planning to get them fixed, but at this day and age, he just wants to walk away from it. He's guessing around $2,000 extra needed probably to do the work. He's willing to take reasonable offers. And yeah, so if you want to own the actual Optimus Prime used in the Bumblebee movie, and you got $21,000 to spare, and he's willing to take offers if it's reasonable. So maybe you could get him down to 21, maybe 20. Yeah, get him at a flat 20,000. And then you got this huge, and it includes the trailer, just this huge truck. You can own a piece of history. It's one of those things, hey, if I was rich and I had the land, I'd buy it. I wouldn't drive it around, really. I'd probably use it for storage. I'd take that giant trailer, I'd give it the nice roller sticker on the side of it, and I'd use it to store I guess a whole bunch of stuff. Be pretty cool. But either way, if you're interested, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to post the link to Justin, who is the owner of the vehicle, and you guys could decide to take a look at the listing, and maybe there's a fan somewhere out there that's listening that has, $21K to spare and is willing to own a piece of Transformer history, not just Bumblebee, but the leader of the Autobots themselves. So yeah, kind of cool. That's why I wanted to talk about it. It gave me an excuse to talk about some technical car stuff too. But either way, check it out. Own a piece of Transformer history. Own Optimus Prime.